Julia Royce, Public Policy Director for Central Europe for Meta. Thanks so much for joining us. We've seen recently that the CEOs of SAP and Siemens, two major German tech-oriented companies, that they've come out and said that they would like to see a kind of slow down to the implementation of the EU's new AI regulations, which member countries right now are trying to put into effect, or they're expected to put into effect. We've also seen similar statements, essentially, from the German government, the new German government, and it's probably not alone in the EU. Do you believe that something fundamental is changing within the EU when it comes to AI regulation?
I would love to see that. I'm still not that optimistic that it really will happen, but I have big hopes that those critical voices are getting heard. Also the voice of Germany. I know the government has, as you just mentioned, already raised their critical voice, saying, well, maybe it's too early. And actually the enforcement is supposed to be effective by early August. And I think it's simply too early. There are many things that we don't know yet. And implementing enforcing now a regulation on AI would just hinder innovation. And I really think that pausing that and just seeing what are the effects, what are the implications on industry, but also on society, we can reassess that in 2 years. But implementing now a regulation at this point, it's just very, very wrong because it would hinder innovation.
Your message, you would hope, is probably coming through. Meta's message, which it has been stating over and over, the message that you just gave as well. Do you think that's what's leading to this change, or is there something else going on? What would you expect for why you're seeing this kind of turn somewhat?
I see that in Brussels, a lot of people are worried about Europe's competitiveness for the future. We have seen the Draghi report in September last year.
This is the Mario Draghi report,
Exactly.
in which he encouraged innovation and sort of new measures to encourage competitiveness in the EU.
Exactly.
I'm sorry,
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And how to regain competitiveness. And he actually stated that these are very small things that needs to change. We don't need new regulation. We just need to do our homework. And this is like finally to introduce a fully harmonized digital market. We still have a fragmented market. We have a lot of overlap with existing regulation. And doing our homework would already be a big boost for competitiveness. So given that a lot of countries in Europe are suffering from recession right now, also Germany, I think Brussels has woken up or got this call that there needs to happen something. And the omnibus procedure, simplification of certain rules, is one tool. Let's see how that plays out. But it would be a good opportunity for Brussels to make a step back and allow also the industry to take a breath and see how to continue.
You talk about the fragmentation of regulation in the EU, something that many Europeans are well acquainted with. What is the best case scenario for coming out of this period in which this AI regulation is going into effect? Because you're not going to remove all of that fragmentation. Fragmentation is part and parcel of the EU in many ways. From Meta's standpoint, what is the best case scenario that can come out?
The best case scenario is that we simply pause and reassess in 2 years' time where the journey of AI is taking us. Because with a lot of uncertainty and, as you said, the fragmentation, we come to a situation where not only Meta, but a lot of companies in Europe, and particularly the startups, are just overwhelmed. I mean, Meta can hire additional lawyers for their legal departments. But how about startups? How about middle-sized companies? I mean, they rather put their hands off the application of AI applications, which would be, I think, tragic, because it's the future for many processes, rather than taking the legal risk. And I think there's a lot of things the EU needs to reconsider, not to hampering that innovation.
Imagine a 2-year pause from Brussels' side. Would that still stop some of the challenges that you're seeing? For example, from the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, this is one of the most populous states in Germany. The Data Protection Agency has or had attempted to bring an injunction on, I believe, the use of Meta products, postings, I should say, on Meta products to train AI. This is something that Meta, I would imagine, would consider key for its development of open source platforms. Can you really imagine a world in which that ends? Isn't that the nature of EU fragmentation?
That's a very good example. It's a very good example for how we approach risk and how fragmented the market really is. Honestly, for training our models with EU data or with data within the EU, we have been waiting for over 8 months. We are on average 8 months behind with launching our products in Europe because of legal uncertainty. So we applied for this. The European Data Protection Board gave us green light in December, and then we slowly rolled it out again with user notification. So we did everything that, and even more, we were asked to do. And nevertheless, there was the legal possibility from, as you said, a consumer protection agency in North Rhine-Westphalia to make an injunction, which kind of created a legal uncertainty, which I had to explain my US colleagues first, like what's all about. Like, you told me this is Europe one. We have green light for Europe now, and now again one region is blocking this. What is next? Tomorrow it's Calabria or it's Normandy. So like, what does it mean? And really, it's worrying me because if we say we have a single European market, we need to fully apply to this. And any other cases are just creating a lot of legal uncertainty.
Critics look at Meta and its AI training right now, and they say that the company is repeating the same kinds of mistakes that it did with personalized advertisement. This has been a debate between Meta and the EU regulators for quite some time now. And the core of it, as I would put it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, would be that critics say that Meta is not giving a consent option. It's not allowing people, according to European law, to say, I consent to this use of personalized data to make advertisements that are tailored for me. Critics are saying that with AI training, there's something similar going on, that there is no consent for the use of this, that there is an opt-out, but there's not an opt-in, essentially. Is that a problem? Is Meta repeating the same mistakes? And even if you believe not, do you believe that Brussels will not see it that way down the road?
I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here. We are very collaborative and we're working very well with the EU Data Protection Board, but also with the EU Data Protection Authority, which is for Meta the main responsible data protection agency in Europe, given that our legal entity in Europe is in Dublin. But beyond Dublin, it's the EU Data Protection Board, which comes together on a regular basis where they make this kind of decisions. So we are in a very, very collaborative exchange here, and I think we are in a good way to find solutions here. When it comes again to this fragmented market, the problem is that if we have already a green light from, let's say, the highest EU task force or board, how is it possible then that specific countries can still block that? We need a clear commitment here also from the member states saying, yes, we have given green light in our board, that's fine, we can roll it out European-wide, because this is not just a problem for Meta, this is a problem also for a lot of startups. I mean, if you want to roll out your product European-wide, and in each border you're confronted with a new legislation, it's just, you can't scale. And this is the reason why European startups still cannot keep up with those in the US or in Asia, because we can't scale in the way US or Asian companies can do.
Speaking of open source AI, obviously this sector is changing so much all the time. And even within Meta, the approach seems to be changing. There is this open source AI model, Llama, of course, which that's part of the training in Europe as well, as far as I understand it. But then there's this super intelligence lab that we've been reading about recently, this effort to create a kind of super intelligent AI. There's obviously multiple levels moving at one time. Maybe help us understand, what is the benefit of an open source model for Meta at all? Why that route and not a closed model that you see with maybe OpenAI or some other companies?
So we think that the open model is the one that will lead to the future. If you have maybe seen the statements of Jan LeCun, our godfather of AI, as we call him, he's leading our research lab in Paris. He also said the dominating model will be open one. Obviously, there's a competition out there. We see, particularly in the market of large language models, particularly the US companies in leading the race. There is not only Meta's Llama, there is OpenAI out there. There is Google's DeepMind out there. There is a lot of other competitors. So it is a question of time, infrastructure, talent. So I think the race is open. We still think that the open source approach is the right way to do it.
Maybe give us some insight. I'm not sure how much you see it from your position, but is there a kind of ongoing debate within Meta about this, about an open source or a closed model as well? How would you describe it?
No, there is no debate about it. It's the open source model, which is for us the way to go for.
Okay. I want to ask about the policy approach and how it affects your job, Meta's policy approach. I would look at it and say since January, there's been a radical shift when you look at the move away from fact-checking, for example, to community notes, the video that Mark Zuckerberg published. Some would say that there is a much more aggressive stance even in relation to Europe when you look at Meta, that there is a much more aggressive stance coming out of Menlo Park. What does that mean for your job? You are going around to European capitals having to explain the interests of Meta and how they overlap with the interests of European countries. Now we have someone, or I should say your boss essentially, is taking a very different turn, I would say, and one that in effect is asking for the US to be a much louder supporter of businesses in Europe, including Meta, obviously.
Well, I don't think a lot of things have changed. And if I talk to policymakers across Europe, they totally acknowledge the changes we have made. I mean, we still, stick to the DSA, the European legal framework.
That's the Digital Services Act.
Exactly, and therefore we haven't changed a lot. What we have changed is that we switched our to community notes, which is a totally also green-lighted by the EU Commission. That is a totally different, but it's a very valid option to deal with community voices. So why not switching that? A lot of other social platforms use that for quite a while. And we have decided to do this as a company's decision, which is fine. We got green light from the European Commission, so it's okay. What we also did, we kind of, I would say, streamlined our content policy decisions, which were already quite complex, a lot of exceptions. We always try to get everything right, which is very hard for a global operating company. But I think the changes, I've heard that there were a lot of criticism out there, particularly in the public. But in fact, we didn't get any pushback. The more we explained it also to policymakers, there was absolutely no negative feedback by this.
Mark Zuckerberg has said that he believes that Europe is censoring tech companies such as Meta. And that, of course, fits well with what we see from the Trump administration and the way that it perceives European speech laws, whether it's hate speech, whether it's misinformation, whatever it is. What does that mean for you in terms of how does that mesh with approaching European capitals that do have interests in limiting certain kinds of speech that they see as dangerous? Is there still overlap there between Meta and the interests of European capitals?
Absolutely. I mean, we stick to the DSA, the Digital Service Act, where everything is pointed out what we have to fulfill, and we do that. We are reliable partners around the globe when it comes to elections, for example. We do stick to our commitments to make elections safe. We do stick to the rules, what you just said in the Digital Service Act, what our requirements we need to meet as a social media platform. So there was no criticism around that.
Do you believe that the codification of what it takes to fight misinformation, disinformation in the DSA, is that established enough that you believe that Facebook is in tune with it, or is that continuing to sort of be evolved what really counts as an appropriate fight against disinformation, where community notes, for example, fit in compared to fact-checking? Is that established, or could it be that Meta faces challenges months down the road, years down the road, after, let's say, a contentious election?
I think with the DSA in Europe, we're in a very good place. This has been a very established regulatory framework. We stick to it, and we're happy with it.
I guess I want to take a look at, again, not to sort of beat a dead horse here, but I think some of the messaging coming out of the headquarters for Meta must be so different, especially when we look at the European Parliament and how they address some of these issues as well. Give us some sense of what you're hearing within European capitals when you talk about the need to maintain certain kinds of speech or certain kinds of free speech, when you're carrying that meta message here.
Well, I mean, that the freedom of speech is a very highly esteemed value is like undebated. I mean, this is true for the US as well as for Europe. And again, we as a social platform, we enable free speech, but within certain guardrails. Again, we have here a regulatory framework guardrails in Europe, which we call DSA, and we are happy with it, and it works very well. So there is no change, or there is no nothing new here.
I want to ask, it looks like I think Meta has said that it could be in a position to begin using AI-created ads in the future by the end of this year, if I'm correct. That could represent a massive shift in the advertising market, in the markets in which it's active, including here in Europe. Where does that lead to here? Does that open you up to new peril in terms of allegations of monopoly? There are obviously already concerns about this.
Well, AI tools are already in place. I mean, already for people who are creating ads, they can already use AI tools to create their own ads. This is nothing new. This is what we've already established, and I don't see any criticism around it. Creators like that, and that's it.
But if you're both publisher and distributor, publisher and designer of ads in one, then aren't you taking out multiple aspects of this economy that you can then, of course, expect member nations here to hear about angrily from these sectors? Is that not going to be a headache for you potentially in a number of months?
There will always be critics. There will always be people who are criticizing a technology advancement. Meta has always been on the forefront of innovation. Therefore, we are used to having a lot of critical voices around us, no matter where they're coming from.
Back when Meta was really focusing on this idea of the metaverse, maybe 5 or so years ago, and that's where many of its investments were going into, it announced that it was going to create about 10,000 new jobs in Europe, I believe, if I have that figure correct, in development of the metaverse. Meta later shifted gears, and those jobs didn't come to fruition, as far as I know. Did it maybe miss a chance there to sort of get more skin in the game in Europe, or give Europe more skin in the game, I should say, to have a broader employment base here that might further its interests down the road?
Well, the metaverse is still being developed. We've seen, particularly in Germany, it's pushed a lot among industry players. Siemens is working a lot with digital twins. So the industrial metaverse as such is a fact. It's not a vision. It's already there. We have quite a lot of people working in Zurich. We have acquired their company back a couple of years ago, and back then it was called Oculus, and this was kind of the nucleus for this developer team, which is now thriving, and it's great, and it's technology designed and developed in Europe, which I'm very proud of.
We talk about all of the regulatory hurdles in Europe. What are the positive aspects that Europe should look forward to when it comes to new technology such as AI and what it can establish here?
I would say focus on the talent. We have great people in fundamental research. We have amazing talent when it comes to the application layer of AI. There are a lot of things, positive things happening here. We just need to let people do, and not coming up with a regulation at this early stage of this new technology.
All right. Julia Royce, thank you very much.
Thank you.